But before going far, he was stunned by what he saw. His life-saving friend had been inexplicably hanged. A group of white men nearby were clearly the killers, but Nick had no ability to avenge his friend. He could only rescue an Indian woman who was trapped, while knocking down a strong man and fleeing on horseback. Luckily the horses were startled so he was not caught, but his canteen was accidentally dropped there. The next day Nick was awakened by a flying arrow. A group of Indians appeared from nowhere. He drew his weapon and took one down, then hurriedly fled again on a white horse. But because the horse was shot in the leg, it carried him straight off a cliff. Fortunately, branches absorbed most of the impact, allowing Nick to survive. But after lying in the snow too long, his body was on the verge of collapse. Seeing a blizzard approaching, to survive, he cut open the white horse's belly, removed all the organs, then stripped off his clothes. Nick made himself a temporary shelter. Only this way could he endure the cold storm. The next day heaven finally favored Nick. He survived once again. Although the scenery after the snow was beautiful, he had no mood to stay another second. Nick walked across the endless snowfield. Now loneliness had become his greatest enemy. But he never forgot his mission, writing the killer's name on the wall. Meanwhile, a stranded man knocked on the camp gate. He said their caravan was attacked by Indians, and only he escaped. He hoped for a bite to eat, then took out all his belongings. The boy recognized the canteen on the table at a glance. It was the one Nick accidentally left at camp. The captain hurried out with his men to search. Finally, on a dark night they found Nick. When they saw his face clearly, everyone was shocked. A man almost torn apart by a bear had returned alive on his own. The furious captain rushed into the room with a rifle, but the old hunter had already disappeared and taken their wealth. The captain vented his anger on the boy. Luckily Nick told the truth. He knew the boy had been kept in the dark. Now the true king had returned. How could he let the killer of his son go? Nick and the captain began the pursuit without rest, determined to capture the murderer. They followed the footprints, but at a fork they suddenly disappeared. They were forced to split up, which was exactly the old hunter's trap. Soon the captain encountered the man first. Although he knew his chances were slim, he resolutely drew his pistol. The gunshot startled Nick, but when he arrived, he only saw the captain's cold body. Nick had no choice but to take him back to camp. Meanwhile, the cunning hunter had long been waiting on the only path. He walked over cautiously with a rifle, but when he turned over the body he was stunned. Nick, who pretended to be a corpse, suddenly rose, but only hit the man's shoulder. Nick grabbed the rifle and chased after him, but the forest became his natural shield. The man accidentally rolled down the slope. Nick jumped down without hesitation, but after the fall both were exhausted. The cunning old hunter no longer wanted to run. He tried to provoke Nick with his son's death, but Nick had already seen through him. Nick charged forward with an axe, giving him no chance to speak. During the struggle Nick held absolute strength and stabbed the knife into the man's abdomen, but he was kicked away. Nick chased again. He mounted the man, swearing to avenge his son. The man began to panic, begging Nick to spare him, saying hatred would pass down endlessly. Nick seemed to realize something. He understood revenge never truly ends, but the moment he looked up, he saw a pair of Indians approaching. Nick came up with a brilliant idea. He would leave revenge in God's hands. The man drifted down the river, and what awaited him would be even more brutal. Nick's great revenge was finally achieved, but he no longer had strength to flee. As the Indians approached, they did not attack. Only then did Nick notice the woman on horseback was the very one he had rescued, and he was saved by his own kindness.